Some nights, silence weighs heavier than darkness. In the town of Edgewater, population just over 8,500, the streets usually lay quiet under a pale glow of street lamps. Snow had just begun falling on January 12, 2021, muffling the usual hum of the town. The homes along Willow Lane were neat, modest, and well-kept, a perfect postcard of small-town life. The Sinclair residence, with its two-story mid-century architecture, stood like a sentinel, the last house before the edge of the woods. Inside, the family slept, or tried to. Robert Sinclair, 42, accountant and man of meticulous habits, had always been careful, perhaps obsessively so. He checked the locks twice, ensured appliances were unplugged, and reviewed the day's finances before bed. Clara, 39, his wife, tried to calm her mind nightly, reading stories to Maya, 14, and listening to Ethan, 16, recount the trivial victories and defeats of teenage life. That night, however, the warmth of routine shattered. At 2:17 a.m., a neighbor, Mr. Jensen, a retired firefighter, noticed flickers of orange light through the second-story window. Within minutes, flames clawed at the siding, smoke pouring into the cold January night. By the time firefighters arrived, the house was a chaotic blend of fire and shadow, consuming decades of family memories. The Sinclair family survived, but the relief was fragile. Clara hugged her children tightly, whispering reassurances she barely believed. Robert, coughing from smoke inhalation, scoured the perimeter, counting bodies and possessions, desperately trying to understand how the unthinkable had happened. At first glance, the fire seemed accidental, perhaps an electrical fault or an overwork heater. But to Fire Chief Malcolm Reyes, 54, a man with decades of experience and a mind trained to read fire like a living language, something was amiss. The burn patterns didn't tell a simple story. They hinted at planning, at something unseen, a meticulous orchestration hidden behind the guise of a domestic accident. By sunrise, the Sinclair house had been reduced to a skeletal frame. Firefighters still puffed out smoke, their hoses dripping onto warped floorboards. Edgewater's small police force, led by Captain Susan Hawthorne, arrived to secure the scene. She was a woman in her late 40s, sharp-eyed, and with a reputation for following instincts that sometimes contradicted protocols. She had been called to countless domestic fires, but the unease in her chest told her this case might not be routine. Robert and Clara were interviewed outside, blankets draped over their shoulders, eyes red from smoke and sleepless nights. Robert's hands trembled as he recounted the night. "I checked everything," he said, voice tight. "The heater, the stove, everything was off. I don't understand." Clara nodded silently, her mind still on Maya and Ethan. Forensic teams combed to the rubble, taking painstaking notes and photographing every scorched surface. Among the burnt remnants, an anomaly emerged. A section of the basement wall seemed unusually intact. Unlike the rest of the charred house, this part bore no soot damage. Chief Reyes knelt, shining a flashlight along the floorboards, feeling the metal hinges beneath the ashes. He muttered under his breath, "What in God's name?" It was Robert who discovered the first clue. While sifting through a pile of scorched furniture, his foot pressed against something solid under a false section of the floor. With trembling hands, he pried open the panels to reveal a narrow, unlit staircase. The basement continued deeper than anyone had known, a hidden sublevel obscured by decades of renovations and plaster. The hidden basement was unnerving. Its walls were cold concrete, lined with shelves that hinted at careful organization. Dust-covered objects that seemed out of place. Crates of personal items, a locked metal chest, and a collection of journals belonging to someone unknown. It was a secondary world beneath the ruin, untouched by fire. Captain Hawthorne's eyes narrowed as she descended the stairs. "This isn't just a fire," she whispered. "Someone wanted this concealed. The journals and objects were sent to evidence labs. Forensics could determine the age and materials, but not the intentions behind them. Who had created this secret basement, and why? Neighbors provided little insight. Edgewater was a type of town where families kept to themselves, polite but distant. Some remembered seeing unusual deliveries months prior, large crates arriving in unmarked vans, but nothing concrete. Others spoke of a man who sometimes lingered near the Sinclair property, watching from across the street. But all recollections were vague, inconsistent, or secondhand. The town's curiosity grew. Local news outlets descended, reporting cautiously on the fire. Rumors began to spread, fueled by the discovery of the hidden basement. Who, if anyone, else had known about it? Were the Sinclairs in danger before the fire? Or was a hidden sublevel something sinister entirely? The Sinclair family tried to maintain normalcy. Ethan and Maya were sent to live temporarily with relatives. Clara oscillated between hope and despair, unable to reconcile the horror of losing her home with the eerie calm of the untouched basement. Robert became obsessed with understanding the hidden sublevel, spending hours documenting and cataloging its contents, hoping for clues that might explain the fire. Yet the deeper investigators dug, the murkier everything became. No accelerants were conclusively identified. Electrical systems were damaged but functional. Security cameras from neighboring homes were damaged by the fire's heat or inconclusive. It seemed as though someone had orchestrated the fire with meticulous precision, erasing traces of culpability. Captain Hawthorne convened a team of detectives, including forensic analyst Liam O'Connor and fire investigator Marissa Tate. Together, they reviewed the Sinclair history, insurance policies, past home renovations, relationships, financial records. Everything pointed to normalcy, and yet the fire had targeted the house in a way that suggested knowledge of its structure and the hidden basement. As weeks turned into months, the investigation hit a wall. The hidden basement remained the only clue, but yielded more questions than answers. The family's journals contained nothing incriminating, only ordinary musings, household accounts, and personal notes. No one claimed ownership of the basement, and no fingerprints were identified that pointed to an intruder. Edgewater's residents whispered. Some suggested insurance fraud, though investigators found no evidence. Others suspected a secret life or a hidden enemy. Every theory seemed plausible, yet impossible to prove. The fire, once thought accidental, now hovered as a specter over the town. Even the Sinclairs could not reconcile the ordinary life they led with the extraordinary mystery beneath their feet. The hidden basement became a focal point for every theory Edgewater investigators could conceive. Captain Hawthorne had the area sealed, but she allowed Robert limited access under supervision. Every box he opened, every journal he flipped through, revealed only fragment of a life meticulously cataloged. Receipts from decades ago, personal letters, dusty photographs. Nothing explained the fire, nothing revealed a motive, and yet the careful organization suggested the basement's creator had been deliberate, almost obsessive. Forensic teams examined the metal chest Robert had found. Its lock was sturdy, rusted over time but unbroken. Inside, they discovered a collection of personal artifacts. Old family photos from before the Sinclairs had moved to Edgewater, letters addressed to someone with only initials, and an envelope containing a single key. There was no address, no explanation. Marissa Tate, the fire investigator, pored over every structural diagram. This house wasn't just burned, she muttered during a team meeting. The fire started in 3 separate locations simultaneously. Whoever did this knew exactly how the layout worked. And that basement, it would have remained hidden even if the fire had been accidental. Neighbors' accounts added layers of unease. A retired postman remembered delivering packages to the house that the Sinclairs did not acknowledge. A landscaper claimed he had once seen someone enter property after hours, a figure he couldn't identify. These fragments were tantalizing but unprovable. Robert and Clara tried to maintain some semblance of normal life, but the hidden basement and its secrets gnawed at them. Robert became almost obsessive, cataloging every item, every photograph, noting inconsistencies. The presence of objects that predated their family's move, items that hinted at a previous occupant, someone who had hidden aspects of their life in the sublevel. Clara, meanwhile, grew tense, wary of every sound, every knock at the door. "It's like someone's still here," she confessed one night to Captain Hawthorne, during a private conversation in the police station. Hawthorne had no answer, only the same chill that had settled over every investigator who stepped into that house. Weeks passed, and the media began reporting on the second basement mystery. Reporters combed Edgewater for interviews, creating theories, speculating motives, and publishing photographs of the house's charred remains. Some locals were frightened, others curious, but everyone agreed on one thing. The fire was no ordinary accident. Then, one rainy evening, Robert made another discovery. Beneath a stack of journals, he found a notebook that did not belong to his family. Its pages were filled with meticulous handwriting, calculations, and observations, notes on the house's structure, the occupants' habits, and even daily logs of fire drills. The notebook suggested a surveillance-like attention to the Sinclairs' routines. Captain Hawthorne examined the notebook with a mixture of awe and dread. "This is detailed." "Too detailed," she murmured. Whoever wrote this was planning something, and they knew exactly what they were doing. Investigators followed every lead, but each trail ended in frustration. Security cameras from nearby businesses provided nothing. Fingerprints in the basement were unidentifiable. The notebooks offered insight into planning, but no name, no confession. Even the envelope with a single key remained a puzzle, its locked box unopened because its mechanism was unknown. The family began to feel the weight of living beneath suspicion. Friends and acquaintances looked at them differently, some with sympathy, others with subtle judgment. Edgewater's small-town dynamics made everyone a potential observer, everyone a potential suspect. Months turned into a year. The fire remained classified as suspicious, cause undetermined. The hidden basement had revealed more questions than answers. Who had created it? Why had it remained hidden? And, most pressingly, had it been the reason the fire occurred, or merely a coincidental secret buried beneath the charred remains? Robert would often stand at the edge of the basement stairs, looking down at the shadows, imagining the person who had designed it all, their meticulous planning, their unseen presence. Clara avoided it, unable to face the mystery that seemed to whisper from the concrete walls. And as the investigation stalled, the case became Edgewater's unsolved enigma, a fire that destroyed a family home, a basement that should not have existed, and the sense that someone somewhere had orchestrated events with precision, yet would never be found. The Sinclairs eventually rebuilt a modest home on the same lot, but the hidden basement was never mentioned, never explored further. Some nights, Robert still dreams of the keys, the envelopes, the meticulous notebooks, and wonders if the architect of the mystery is still out there, watching, waiting, knowing. The fire, the basement, the unanswered questions. They became a story whispered from neighbor to neighbor, a legend of Edgewater, a true crime that would never be solved. By the afternoon, the cord of a house sat behind yellow police tape, like a wounded animal, its bones charred, its windows hollowed, its roof sagging inward. Investigators moved through the space slowly, as if afraid the house might inhale and swallow them whole. Fire Inspector Daniel Rojas crouched beside the remains of what used to be the kitchen. He brushed away blackened debris with a gloved hand, studying burn patterns that curled up the walls like claw marks. "It's strange," he muttered. Detective Nora Bennett, still in her smoke-scented jacket, crossed her arms tightly as she scanned the room. "What is?" Rojas pointed to the floor. "Accelerant poured in a V pattern, but only here, nowhere else. Somebody wanted the fire to start in this room, not spread naturally." Nora felt a chill gather at the base of her neck. She looked out through a broken kitchen window at the backyard, the swing set, the collapsed shed, the patch of dirt where Mrs. Cordova used to grow tomatoes. And if they wanted to look accidental, she said, they almost pulled it off. Rojas nodded grimly. The house groaned softly in the breeze. Something felt wrong here, wrong in a way Nora couldn't articulate, but could feel deep in her bones. "Show me the basement again," she said quietly. Rojas frowned. "We've already cleared it. Nothing down there except old tools and a boiler. Let's go anyway." He hesitated, then nodded. "All right, but step carefully." The basement stairs were soaked, warped from the heat. Each step cried out under Nora's boots as she descended. The air grew colder. Not cooler, but colder, the kind that feels like a presence rather than temperature. Lights flickered to life overhead. The basement looked exactly as Rojas had described. One open space, tools, metal shelves, scattered belongings. But something tugged at Nora's attention, something that seemed off, though she couldn't yet name it. "What's behind that?" she asked suddenly. Rojas followed her gaze. "A wall. Just a wall. Concrete, gray, uneven, nothing unusual on its surface. At first glance, nothing, he said. Load-bearing. Nora stepped closer. She pressed her palm against the concrete. Cold, too cold. And then she noticed it. The faintest line, running vertically beside a set of dusty paint cans. Almost invisible, unless the light hit it at the perfect angle. "You see that?" she whispered. Rojas's breath caught. "Hold on." He dropped to his knees, running his gloved fingers along the wall. "This isn't load-bearing." Meaning someone built this recently. Someone hid something. Nora stared at him. Hidden rooms in a house that burned down with a family inside is rarely a coincidence. Rojas stood. "We need a ram." But Nora stepped back. "No, not yet." She eyed the wall longer. And that's when she saw it. Something so small, so eerie, she almost missed it entirely. A fingerprint. Clear as glass. But it wasn't burned, melted, smeared. It was pressed from inside of the wall outward, as if someone had been behind it, pushing. Nora swallowed hard. "What the hell is this place?" she whispered. Rojas didn't answer. He just reached for his radio. And before he could speak into it, the light overhead flickered once, twice, then stayed on. Too bright, too steady, too wrong. The ram hit the wall only once. Just once. And the concrete, supposed concrete, crumbled too easily, as if the entire structure had been pretending to be stronger than it was. Dust spilled into the room in a long, gray sigh. When the debris settled enough of the beam of Rojas's flashlight to cut through, everyone in that basement went silent. There was a room, a whole room, hidden behind a wall in a family home that had burned from the inside out. Detective Nora Bennett stepped forward first, chest tight, pulse tapping against her ribs. This wasn't fear, not exactly. It was something colder. Anticipation mixed with dread, the kind that true crime investigators learn to recognize early in their careers. "Lights," she said. But there were none. The secret room swallowed all light, absorbing it as if it hadn't seen brightness in years. Rojas clicked his flashlight. The beam caught the outline of a metal bed frame, pushed against the far wall. The mattress was thin, dented in the center, sheets crumpled as though someone had slept in them. Not recently, but not long ago either. Nora stepped inside. The air was stale. Still, not smoky. Strange, considering the fire above. It smelled faintly like old fabric, dust, and something metallic. Her eyes drifted to the floor. Chains. Not many, just two, bolted into the cement. The metal cuffs were open, empty, but their position told a darker truth. Whoever had been in this room, at some point, wasn't meant to leave. A chill tightened across her shoulders. "What is this?" Rojas murmured, voice barely above a breath. Nora didn't answer. Not yet. Her flashlight moved on. There was a table. Small. Wooden. A single chair tucked in neatly, as if someone had just stood up, and on the table, a notebook. Black. Unmarked. Edges burned slightly from the heat of the fire, but not destroyed. Nora approached it slowly, carefully. She touched it with gloved fingers, feeling the texture of scorched leather. Rojas spoke behind her. "Detective, look at the walls." She turned. That's when she saw them. Symbols. Dozens of them. Carved into concrete. Shallow but deliberate. Circles intersecting with lines. Repeating patterns. Some familiar. Some impossible to decipher at a glance. They covered the entire wall behind the bed, as though someone had carved them out of desperation or madness or ritual. Nora felt her throat tighten. "This is not where a fire victim lives," she whispered. Rojas nodded slowly. "So who was down here?" Silence. Cold. Heavy. Intentional. The kind of silence that made you feel observed. Nora lifted the notebook and opened it. The pages were filled with handwriting. Not neat. Not chaotic. Just strange. Names. Dates. Short sentences. Most scratched out. Some repeated. Some circled. Then one page, halfway through, made her spine lock. The fire wasn't for them. Below it, IT was for who was under them. Nora closed the notebook. Her pulse hammered hard. Get this logged and bagged. Rojas took a slow, uneasy breath. Detective, if someone was down here, how long were they kept? Nora didn't answer. She couldn't, because the next question was worse. Were they still alive when the fire started? And if so, had they tried to escape? Had they pounded on that wall? Had anyone heard? Nora turned to the wall one more time. The fingerprint pressed outward stared back at her. She exhaled shakily. This wasn't a fire scene, she said. Her voice didn't shake, but it tried to. This was something else entirely. Outside, the wind howled softly through the broken frame of the house, almost as if repeating her words. The Cordova family's bodies were pulled from the ruins by mid-morning, their forms charred, fragile, and almost unrecognizable beneath layers of soot. The coroner's van rolled away as neighbors watched from behind police tape, clutching jackets to their chests, whispering theories they would later swear they never said aloud. Detective Nora Bennett followed the bodies to the County Forensic Center. She hated the drive there, long, straight, and painfully silent, a road built for thinking. Even when you didn't want to think at all. The autopsy room was cold. Too cold. Nora stood behind the observation glass as Dr. Elaine Porter, the medical examiner, adjusted her gloves. Elaine was methodical, brilliant, and notoriously calm. She'd once performed an autopsy during a power outage with nothing but a handheld light and a determination that still scared rookies. But today she looked uneasy. The first body on the table was Claudia Cordova, the mother, a woman in her late 40s, known in the neighborhood for hosting block parties and bringing cookies to PTA meetings. Her life had been painfully ordinary. Her death was not. Elaine began the examination. Nora watched, waited, studied every shift in Elaine's expression. After an hour, the coroner removed her mask and sighed. Nora, the burns didn't kill her. The words hit the room like a drop weight. What do you mean? Nora asked. Elaine pointed to the lungs. No soot. None at all. She didn't inhale smoke. Her airway is clean. Clean, Nora repeated, disbelief prickling her skin. She was dead before the fire started. Elaine said, flat, certain. A chill moved through Nora's frame, slow and heavy. Time of death. Elaine hesitated, and Nora knew, instantly, that hesitation meant trouble. I don't know yet, the coroner admitted. Her body doesn't match the expected decomposition for a recent death. Parts of her tissue look older. Older? Nora frowned. How much older? Elaine's voice dropped. Weeks. Nora felt the air shift, subtle, sharp, almost dizzying. That's impossible, she whispered. Claudia was seen alive just 3 days ago. Grocery store. Security footage. I know, Elaine replied. And that's why I'm saying this very carefully. Nora, her body says otherwise. The detective leaned back, fingers pressed her forehead. So, what are you telling me? Someone kept her somewhere? Alive? Dead? Preserved? What? Elaine didn't answer. She couldn't. Instead, she moved to the second table. Eduardo Cordova, the husband. Nora braced herself. But nothing could have prepared her for what came next. Elaine peeled back the remaining clothing fragments around Eduardo's wrists. The burns had mostly destroyed identifying marks, but not all. The faint bruising pattern beneath the skin told a story. Circular bruises. Symmetrical. Consistent with restraint. She was in chains, Nora whispered. Elaine nodded grimly. And so was he. Nora closed her eyes for one slow second. The hidden room. The chains bolted into the floor. The mattress. The symbols carved into the concrete. She opened her eyes. Checked the teenagers. 2 tables over, the bodies of 14-year-old Maya Cordova and 16-year-old Lucas Cordova lay side by side. Their autopsies told the same disturbing truth. No smoke inhalation. No fire-related death. Bruising around the ankles. Faint ligature marks on the wrists. Malnutrition signs. Dehydration. Nora's jaw tightened. This wasn't a fire. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't even a typical homicide. This was captivity. Long-term. Organized. Hidden in plain sight. Elaine removed her gloves and stepped toward the glass. There's something else, she said softly. Nora braced herself. We found traces of a compound in their systems. A sedative. Something I haven't fully identified yet. Nora blinked. A drug. Elaine nodded. Something strong. Something used to keep people compliant. The room felt colder than before. Nora swallowed hard. So, someone drugged them, restrained them, kept them alive, then killed them before the fire? Elaine looked down. Her voice came out barely above a breath. Nora, I'm not convinced whoever was in that second basement was the only one kept there. The words rattled something loose in the detective's chest. Are you saying there were more? Elaine didn't respond. She didn't have to. The silence answered for her. Detective Nora Bennett did not sleep for 3 days after the autopsy. Her mind looped the same questions with a punishing persistence, like a machine refusing to power down. How long had the Cordova family been held? Who had taken them? Why the second basement? Why the carved symbols on the wall? And why burn the house down after killing them? It didn't add up. Nothing about this case ever did. But the break came in the smallest form, a half-burnt metal tag recovered from the debris. It was found near what had once been the entrance to the hidden basement, buried under soot and charred insulation. The tag was unlike anything from the house. Thick metal, industrial grade, stamped with a number, 07-3X5-24. The forensics team traced it to an old manufacturing facility 30 minutes outside town. The building had been abandoned for 12 years. No employees, no business, no utilities. But when Nora and her team entered the abandoned factory, breath held tight in their chests, they found signs that someone had been there recently. Boot prints, discarded latex gloves, food wrappers less than a week old, and on the far wall, written in soot, I keep what belongs to me. The phrasing didn't sit right with Nora, but before she could analyze the meaning, the lab called. The metal tag had microscopic traces of the same sedative found in the Cordova family systems. So whoever had used the tag had also controlled the drug. And then, the worst realization dropped like an anchor. The drug was not commercially available. It was a compound used by a discontinued pharmaceutical trial. A trial supervised by Dr. Adrian Pike, Claudia Cordova's former employer. Dr. Pike had abruptly left the state 3 years earlier. No forwarding address, no records of relocation, no employment trace, like he had evaporated. But Nora found something else, something that made her skin prickle. Claudia Cordova had worked directly with Pike in his clinical trials. Her signature was on several of the restricted compound reports, and one of the last emails she ever sent, 2 months before her death, was addressed to Pike. Adrian, I found something in the lab records. I need to talk to you. Privately. No reply. At least none that investigators could find. Nora tracked Pike's last known vehicle to a storage facility 2 states away. The unit he rented was abandoned now. But inside, investigators found a single object covered by a tarp. A steel cage. Human-sized. The bars on the inside were scratched. Deep. Violent. Desperate. But no DNA. No prints. No evidence admissible in court. And no Dr. Pike. He had vanished again. Cleanly. Expertly. Just like before. Residents whispered theories in grocery aisles and gas station lines. Some believed the cult had killed the Cordovas. Others said it was a husband's past, a rumor that he owed someone money. A few insisted the second basement meant the family had been hiding something. But the loudest whispers insisted one thing. Someone else had been kept in that secret room before the Cordovas, or after, and that someone was still out there. Detective Nora Bennett submitted her final report almost a year later. A report filled with contradictions, missing motives, dead ends, and unanswered questions. A case file thick enough to break a shelf, but hollow of resolution. She didn't believe the Cordova family had been the killer's first victims. She didn't believe they were the last, either. And she believed, deeply painfully, that Dr. Adrian Pike knew far more than anyone realized. But the law needs proof, and this case offered none. With no suspect, no weapon, no timeline, and no surviving witnesses, the investigation was officially suspended. Not closed, never closed, just paused, left in a drawer, waiting. To this day, The empty lot where the Cordova home once stood remains untouched. No developer will buy it. No neighbor will go near it. On cold nights, locals say they hear metal clinking underground, like chains shifting where no chain should be. Some say it's just cooling pipes. Others say it's imagination. But a handful of people, the ones who speak only in low voices, swear the sound is the echo of something that never left, something that was kept, something that escaped, or someone. The fire destroyed the house. But not the truth. The Cordova case lives on as one of the most chilling, bewildering, and deeply unsettling mysteries in the region's history, because the evidence didn't point to a single killer. It pointed to the possibility of a system, a structure, an operation, one that Dr. Adrian Pike may have been part of or running. And with every year that passes without an arrest, one chilling fact becomes harder to ignore. Whoever did this knew how to disappear, and they might still be out there, choosing their next family.